Hello, I'm Robert, a fact checker and science blogger, and I help people who are scared of various things for our Facebook group Doomsday Debunked. I'll put a link in the description if you want to join it or to help other people who are scared of such things. So at this time, I'm going to talk about this thing that comes up quite a bit. Almost people take it for granted that it must be true, that a very advanced alien race would see humans as we see insects. I see no reason for that at all, even if it's a billion years old civilization. So first of all, we can't talk to insects, and an advanced alien race would probably find it very easy to talk to us. Even if they don't have a babblefish, like in the Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy, they would have ways of doing it, of learning a language very quickly. And say, ants aren't intelligent, can't reason and think about consequences. And so we would likely notice the extraterrestrials as well. So especially if they're doing mega engineering and travelling in spaceships. And we'd see bright lights going around through our solar system if there was a big presence of aliens here. And we'd see bright lights at a great distance if they were doing things like warping space or whatever. If space warp was possible, it would probably be very obvious from a great distance. And various other things. If they were reshaping the entire galaxy and going around turning planets and solar systems to their kind, then we would see big mega projects in space, and we would notice them easily. Whereas an ant, that doesn't even have the concept of what a house is. It's just crawling around in another habitat like any other. It could be, so as I say there, if they were living in a very sustainable way in our universe and protecting the galaxy, then we mightn't see them. And there are many reasons why there might be extraterrestrials here and we mightn't know about them. That is my favourite, actually. I think that's the most likely reason. It's called the sustainability solutions to the Fermi's paradox, but I've got a particular slant on it, and I've written a fair bit about it in my Touch Mars question book, and also in my Pale Blue Dot, and I did as a prize essay, which I didn't win, but I had a lot of fun writing it. I'll put a link to it in the description, and I might talk a little bit about that as well. But so I personally think that if you look at the direction we're going, and look how far we've gone in just a century, we're heading towards being more sustainable, more respecting of human rights, more caring about disadvantaged people and disadvantaged creatures, more caring about animals as well, and insects and biodiversity, and if you follow that into the future, and if we are typical, then an alien that has been around for millions of years is going to be far more advanced in that direction than we are. And it's not at all likely that we spot an alien race that is in an expanding. So we kind of imagine ourselves in the galaxy, and we imagine ourselves as we were last century, just expanding recklessly. Well, we didn't realise it was recklessly, and very few of us, but our population just growing and growing and growing. And our population is now levelling off, and we expect to level off about 11 billion, possibly a lot less than that. If we are able to advance our civilization rapidly, in the sense of the disadvantaged people. So I think that the sign of how civilized we are is not how we manage the most wealthy people, but about the most disadvantaged people in our world. In that sense, we're not very civilized yet. But if we become reasonably civilized in the middle of this century, so the disadvantaged people also, then they get good education and good health and so on, then this is what we have found is the key to the slowing down of population growth, and particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. Then if they get tertiary education and equal rights for women and women with jobs and so on, this in projections using some kind of social modelling, then this hugely reduces the estimated population, the projected population for sub-Saharan Africa. Anyway, whether that happens or not, then sometime in the near future, then we're projected to level off. And so we can easily expect that extraterrestrials, if they were at all like us, then they would likely reach a sustainable future. They would respect human rights. They would likely have very long lives, because our lives are extending by about a year every 4 years, Go forward 1,000 years and we'd be 250 years longer. Now, whether it continues like that is hard to say, but I mean, probably in jugs and so on, it's likely that our life expectancy is maybe there's no known limit to the life expectancy of a human being. No technical reason why we should stop at any particular point. It seems that old people, that if you get to 120, then your chance of living another year is greatly reduced. If you get to 100, it's quite a bit reduced, but you still have a life expectancy of a year or two at 100. And so if you look at it that way, there isn't any sharp cut-off. And if you had 1 trillion people, then the chances are you'd have some people live to 120, 130, maybe 140, just through chance. So improvements in medicine, and we could easily live to be quite a bit older than we are, even we aren't yet at the limits of our medicine, although it seems to be maybe getting close to it. It seems to be slowing down in some places, the advances in our life expectancy. So, but there's definitely the possibility of breakthroughs. A lobster would probably live indefinitely if it weren't that when it reaches about the age of 30, then it struggles to get out of its shell, and most lobsters die. If they don't die through being caught and eaten or whatever, then they die through not being able to molt. And so you can imagine a technological civilization of lobsters, then they would just have mechanical ways of molting, and so they wouldn't die when they molted, and so they could live theoretically forever. And the Greenland shark lives for 500 years. But I mean, this is relevant because extraterrestrials, they would very likely live centuries. And I think it's quite possible that a recently advanced civilization, then they would live for hundreds of thousands or millions of years. And creatures like that, then they are not likely to be adventurous, rushing around, destroying things and so on. They will care very much about their future, even more focused on sustainability and adaptability, and human rights will be very important, and murder would be just about unthinkable for million-year-old people or creatures. And they need not be more intelligent than us. So intelligence it's quite difficult to actually pin down what intelligence is. You get these various ideas of being able to think very quickly. Well, that's not really intelligence. Being able to think quickly. If you think stupid things quickly, what good is that? So being able to think very, very elaborate things and bring them together, and a lot of people think that is kind of intelligence. Sort of. But if you can think elaborate nonsense. Very clever, intelligent people sometimes say very nonsensical things. I think Stephen Hawking is a great example of that. He was absolutely brilliant in general relativity and at quantum mechanics. Nobody could deny he was absolutely brilliant and very intelligent. I don't know what his IQ was, but way up high somewhere. But he had absolutely daft ideas in some areas. You know, he didn't do his research. He when he's way outside his own area, and because of his fame, and kind of basking in his fame, and sort of they get this thing where people are very famous kind of think that everything they say, it's almost like a manic depressive, sort of believing his ideas because he got kind of fascinated by his own brilliance or something, and saying things about how, like for instance, one of his absolutely ridiculous talks, and I think the last big one that he did before he died, where he said that the world would, that the population would grow and grow and grow, until until eventually, hardly any standing space for human beings. At that point, he thought that the world would get just so hot that we wouldn't be able to deal with the waste heat. He hadn't read and certainly didn't refer to in any way in his talk these population projections that I just told you about. He showed no sign of knowing anything about it, and he just didn't research his talks. He said lots of bizarre things that had no background of research. And I think probably his helpers, maybe some of them knew, but just didn't dare to contradict him or something. I don't know. That's something you have to watch out for if you get very famous. Anyway, so extraterrestrials. So being able to produce being intelligent in that sense doesn't necessarily mean you're sensible. And they also grasp emotional intelligence, visual intelligence. So lots of different aspects to intelligence, but they needn't be more intelligent than us. It actually seems to be in some ways a disadvantage. It's kind of counterproductive in some ways. If you get too intelligent, you can get caught up in these schemes and ideas that confuse you, and that doesn't seem to be sometimes terribly helpful. And you certainly have to be very, very careful. If they have this ability to build grand ideas like that, they will also have to have the discipline and the understanding and the wisdom and in order to deal with that. Maybe we evolve both of those at once. Maybe they evolve both of those at once. They have to be very wise and compassionate in order to be able to cope with being what we think of as being very intelligent. And it could easily be that they become less intelligent. So you get science fiction stories in which, and I think they're quite plausible, in which very advanced beings are extremely unintelligent. A bit like the Vogons but that's not a very good example. Of course, they go around destroying things, but I don't see it likely that we're going to. Those I don't think would actually manage to reach that stage, because they'd be we need to be quite able to cope with others and have a sustainable kind of society. Theirs was very unsustainable, and I think it's just the way that our universe is, perhaps a bit luckily, that it's very difficult to go interstellar, and before you get to that point, then you're likely to have sorted out what it's like with your business at home, and be reasonably sustainable and long-lived and far-seeing. So if you're long-lived, you're also going to be far-seeing. And so they might easily become less intelligent. They might lose the capabilities for being sympathetic, compassionate, and loving. And if they do, they have a lot to learn from us. So either the extraterrestrials, so in that case, they're emotionally, compassionately stupid. And in this case, they're less intelligent in the very ordinary sense. So it is possible that we come across unintelligent extraterrestrials, because they just have their machines do everything for them or whatever. But I think they would not be likely to spread very far in the galaxy. And as I say in my pale blue dot, that if we start expanding out into the galaxy, I think we will have to be very, very careful, because if we had a colony of human beings that lost their intelligence, and because they had machines doing everything for them, or that they lost their wisdom, or weren't compassionate or loving, they lost the idea of sustainability, the importance of sustainability, then they could be rather devastating for the galaxy and for us. So I think in the future we're going to be very, very careful about interstellar flight, and start thinking, what happens when they get beyond the light speed horizon and could start coming back again. People worry sometimes about replicating machines spreading through the galaxy. I think replicating humans are actually the risk. And I think that in the direction we're going, then we're going to be, by the time interstellar flight is really possible, I think we're going to care a lot about that, and we're going to find a way through that. And whatever it is, then, whatever it is, then it would like to live in a very sustainable way, protecting the galaxy, and they will care about the possibility of having progeny that might lose intelligence or lose compassion and lose common sense and lose this sustainable understanding that we have and that they would have surely much heightened. So, anyway, either they're compassionate and loving and wise. If so, they certainly want to help us from the compassion and love, but within the limits of what's possible from their understanding and wisdom. And it is possible even that they're in our solar system, but in their wisdom they have some idea, some ways of understanding our culture, very much like the Star Trek Prime directive, that they feel that they can't interfere, or they interfere in unobtrusive ways that we don't see, in order to kind of helpfully direct us in a more positive way, maybe little tweaks that nobody notices. That could be one possibility. Or they're not here at all, which I think is by far the most likely myself. There's absolutely no sign of them in our solar system, and certainly they're not out here to try and take advantage of us, because they would like to be here. Absolutely absurd coincidence to get here in the very century that we develop industrial civilization. They could have evolved any time in the last 10 billion years or so. So if there are aliens here, then they could have got the Earth for themselves and the entire solar system and remade it in their image millions of years ago, and that obviously hasn't happened. So so as I say, I'm not saying that they need our religions or our philosophy, but as thinking about beings, if they didn't have that, as they'd have a lot they could share with us and talk to us about, and then if they don't have that, then they have a lot to learn from us. And I don't think there's any reason actually why they mightn't have a lot to learn from us anyway. Just like we have things to learn from people who are not very, don't have high technology in Amazon rainforests, but they have learnt a lot from living in their place. They understand their forest, we understand our world, and we are getting to work with it more. We have our own unique perspective and understanding. We have great figures in the past who have had great understanding and wisdom. As a Buddhist, I think of Buddha, but you think of Jesus, and you think of Muhammad, you can think of whoever you think of as being people who had great insights. And of course some of them also, other people disagree in whether they had insights, but it does seem that whatever there might have been things that actually maybe didn't come through very well, that there was in their follows and what happened afterwards, that there was great insight there. And all the systems of thought, Karl Marx, if you various humanists, they're not responsible for what happens to their ideas. They do their very best to get these ideas into the world. And in that sense, we do have quite a lot of inspiring past, and our artwork as well. It's well possible that a very advanced civilization would still have things to learn from us. And not so much likely in technology, but it's not impossible. I have my thing that I wrote about would extraterrestrials have different mathematics from us, and I think it is possible. Mind you, if it is a kind of galactic civilization, and where there's like 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 different civilizations working together in a big web, they all communicate with each other, then still we'll likely have our own unique perspective. But it's probably more likely that most of what we've thought of, then some of them have come across it in some way or another, especially mathematics and science. But anyway, if they turn out to be able to think far faster than us and solve immensely complex equations in a fraction of a second, then we might seem like children to them. But people care about children, and they could still be depressed, upset, paranoid, confused. They could be bored. So it's not necessarily, even if they're a million years old civilization, that they're completely problem free. And they might come and look at us and look at us and just say, oh look, this very young civilization, young and vibrant. Do you remember when we were like that 1 billion years ago? And they can learn from that, learn from our youth and our naivety even, and the way we look at the world, which they maybe lost long ago. And if you've got immensely long lives, then they may be also kind of a little bit staid and dull in the way they approach the world, the universe. So I don't think that we should think that because, as say, high IQ doesn't guarantee to solve your life problems or make you more compassionate or aware or enjoy life more or make you wiser. We see all of that on Earth. We might seem like children to them, still children can have astonishing insights also sometimes. You get a young child just able to talk. Even before they talk, then in the way they act, they can convey insights. So they may well have things to learn from us. As I say, they may be an old, slow-moving civilization, and even if there's like 10,000 in the galactic civilization, still, that's probably only one every... Suppose there were, say, 10,000 civilizations in our galaxy. I'm assuming it's pretty rare to develop an intelligent species with a civilization. Then, over 10 billion years, then that would be one new civilization every 1,000,000 years. So, for them to come across us, and we would be a very new, the first new civilization probably for the last 1,000,000 years or 100,000 years that has joined the Galactic Federation if that happened. And so, maybe they've solved all their physics and science and life problems and nothing to do except polish the details of ancient proofs of results everyone knows, add a few decimal points of precision to millions years old measurements, and discuss intricate details of philosophy or maths, just basically the last the I's and T's. And yet, they might have lost their grounding in the essential values that are obvious to us. And it is also possible that they have gone so in one particular direction in their maths, say, that they've missed a little insight that we have, that they just didn't think of, and they just go over and over. It is something we see from our own history and our own history of maths, that it's extraordinary sometimes, like the idea of zero, the idea of a negative number, how very, very long it took human mathematicians to come up with those ideas, which seem obvious to us. And there probably are ideas in maths that we haven't seen yet. And there may be ideas in maths that they haven't seen yet, that are sort of obvious. So that is also possible. And they might not need compassion and wisdom, but perhaps but maybe their main issue is boredom. And then in that case, we might be an injection of new life and interest to them. And if they do see us as uninteresting and of no relevance, and they don't see any point in helping us, then that actually suggests that they have plenty to learn from us if they could only know it, about compassion and love and wisdom. So this, I hope, helps you if you get upset by this idea that extraterrestrials could see us as being like ants. We aren't ants. And, of course, it could be the other way around. Maybe we can learn from ants too as well. You can sort of learn from them, but sadly we can't talk to ants. And whatever the insights they may have from their way of life, then it's very difficult to access them. I think personally that there are some insights even that insects have, but that they're very hard to access, and they have very dim, dull awareness, but they have some kind of insight there as well. Anyway, for sure, we have insights and understanding and a perspective that would be relevant to extraterrestrials. And as I said, there's no real reason to suppose particularly that they would be more intelligent than us, though it's possible they would. But if they had, then it would be very important for them to develop their wisdom along with the intelligence. So, anyway, that's that. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more. I think I'll do this as 3 separate videos, short videos. So that's me on the ants. And I'm going to talk about we don't need to be afraid of aliens. And then I'll talk about my pale blue dot.